Yep, I do enjoy a good old-fashioned ARCA race at Daytona. I mean, just think about it. There are so many, the whole race essentially is just one big meme. You got ARCA breaks, you've got crazy things the commentators say and do, you've got huge wrecks, and you've got crazy and controversial moments littered throughout. In terms of a stock car race, you can't get much more entertaining than that, and oh hey, by the way, no stages. So it's a big thumbs up in my book. But before I get into the meat and potatoes of this review, I want to share with you a few things I learned during the broadcast of this particular race, the Lucas Oil 200 at Daytona. And the first thing is that Hailie Deegan, her bucket list item is to be a stunt pilot. And I think she specifically mentioned that her goal is to do the thing where the plane cuts the engine out and, I believe in her words, do the boom, 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 boom thing and fall through the air with no engine on. Very ambitious bucket list item, and it may end up being the last thing on your bucket list, at least as far as I'm concerned. She's got bigger cojones than me, I will say that. Second thing I learned is that if you're broadcasting an ARCA race on Fox and you say the word guys, you have to immediately follow it up with an awkward and girls, because apparently, just because there are some female drivers in the race, apparently guys is a gendered thing, or a gendered, I guess, pronoun, and we have to also gender the female drivers, otherwise something will happen. I'm not really sure why. I thought guys was an all-encompassing phrase, especially when you're talking about a bunch of race car drivers in a pack. I didn't think we had to identify each and every individual gender of each of the drivers out there. But what do I know? In fact, I think most female race car drivers have at least one quote in their career that's usually like, when they get that question of, what's it like to be one of the girls out there driving? They usually answer with, well, I would just like to be one of the guys. But nah, let's not call them guys. Let's call them girls. Let's make sure to point it out a lot. Whatever. And the third thing I found out is that in an ARCA race, you can literally tape the window shut so that you cannot see out of it, and you can continue to go out there and race. And I want to say this because this unfortunate gentleman who had to endure this is a sprint car driver by the name of David Gravel, which I think is one of the most appropriate names in the world. And ironically, I guess I should be a fan of his, because if you think about it, we're both named David, and we both have earthy names. You got land, you got gravel, we just need a backhoe, and we got the whole construction crew ready to go. So, let's talk about the ARCA race, because it was pretty wild, as you kind of expect from the ARCA Menards racing series. And we started out with Michael Wayne Self on the pole, winner from 2018 in that wild race. But it didn't take very long. I had a prediction that they would make it to lap 3 before they wrecked. In fact, they didn't even make it to turn 3. Spinning out was Andy Seuss. He actually started on the front row, got turned, crossed the grass, spun back across the track, and we got some ARCA breaks from some of the back markers. And that would not be the last time in the race that we would see some crazy stuff happening. Intense racing, cars getting 3 wide in the pack. I thought for sure this was going to be the wreck, but it happened just a few moments later as the pack encountered a lap car. J.J. Pack kind of packed some of the bottom lane down, and just an absolutely massive accident, taking out most of the field, including Hailie Deegan, who I really do want to say here, I'm not memeing, I'm not being edgy. Maybe I am being edgy by saying this, but she was running a completely solid race, running really consistently, running at the front of the field, and looking at how the rest of the race ended up. If she hadn't been involved in that wreck, she probably would have been contending in the top 5 towards the end of the race. But that's just how those things sort of go on the plate races. Now, this was the first red flag of the race, kind of obvious, I would say, because of the nature of the accident. And then we get back to the green flag, and the racing picks up once again. Of course, with a shortened field like that, a lot of the problems of the ARCA Super Speedway package were amplified. The bottom lane on the restarts was absolutely the preferred lane, and it definitely seemed like your placement on the restarts, whether you were in the top lane or on the bottom lane, determined how far how far back you would fall or how far forward you would fall. And unfortunately, that happened to Hailie Deegan, one of the big stories I think a lot of people, and myself included, were following. She fell back, had a pretty intense battle a couple of times with some drivers, but she made a big mistake in this sequence. And a lot of people are going to be talking about this, as she wrecked Hires, one of the Andy Hillenberg drivers, and that was a really unfortunate wreck. It was a really hard hit for Hires, and here's the deal. So I don't want this to sound like a defense, but because I don't think that was really a defense or a defendable thing that happened with Hailie Deegan. But I will say this. One of the things that really impressed me about her drive throughout this entire race was the fact that she was willing to go out there and try things. You saw her aggressively side drafting cars, even when it really didn't matter. It was like for 10th position. You saw her trying to bump draft in various places around the track, seeing how the car would react, clearly setting up for that kind of last dash to the finish. So yes, it's indefensible that she wrecked somebody. Can't defend that, but the rest of the race from her was very impressive, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. Unfortunately, like I said, the package left a lot to be desired. You saw a lot of single file racing. Again, the bottom line was the most dependent thing, and it was whether if you started on the outside, you needed to get to the bottom, and if you started on the bottom, you better not let anybody in because you're probably going to lose a couple of positions for a long time. And then really the crushing blow for Hailie Deegan, because it did look like she was going to be in contention to win the race, but a lot of that was dependent on Tanner Gray, her teammate, Pro Stock NHRA champion, believe it or not, who had a radiator get punctured and fell out of the race towards the end of the race. And that was really because then you had a bunch of Venerini Toyotas in there, and unfortunately Hailie Deegan's running a Ford, so they weren't going to help her very much. Regardless, Deegan did get to start on the inside and looked like she was at least going to have a shot at Michael Self, who absolutely dominated the race up until that point. But there really wasn't any chance, again, kind of because of the package, I hate to say it, for her to really get an opportunity. Self wins the race the second time he's won Daytona, and apparently it's the exact same chassis he won with it in 2018. Deegan takes second, but again, I do want to say this because I think it's important. Hailie Deegan really impressed me in this race, and I don't want to throw that out there too much. Now, I want to say, because of what we've kind of realized about her style, she's never going to be a totally liked driver. I think she's going to be more of a Kyle Busch as she goes up through the ranks. We saw that with Jager Jones in a short track race that she won, and now we're seeing it here on the super speedways. She's going to go for it, and that means you're going to end up with accidents and cars coming together and hot tempers. It's just going to happen. She's not going to be a Jeff Gordon or a Jimmy Johnson. It's going to be a Kyle Busch or an AJ Foyt or a, dare I say it, Dale Earnhardt. Just saying. And then you get to Michael Wayne Self, who I think ran a fantastic race. He clearly has a great feel for Daytona, winning 2 out of the last 3 races there. Now, it certainly helped that he had a lot of experience, but again, as I am definitely a fan of this, I'm hoping that Lionel Racing will produce a diecast of it, or Sinclair Oil or whoever might or might not be watching this right now. Hey, make a diecast, I'll buy it. So, that was ARCA, the first race of Speed Weeks. Let me know what you thought of it down in the comments section below and what you think of this review. I hope you enjoyed it. I tried to keep the pace up a little bit, try to keep this review a little bit shorter than my usual ones, but thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube, and I will see you in the next video.